Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation and a special presentation with Grant Arthur from Grant's Rock Warehouse. And we have got a very special guest. We've got Prescott Niles, bass player from the Knack. Welcome, Prescott. How are you, mate?
Thank you. And I have an affinity with Australia, and we'll get into some stories later. And I was lucky enough to be there at the right time when we were allegedly number one.
Absolutely.
You were number one everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, almost. I don't know if we did too well in Iran, but we did pretty well.
And when we started before we recorded, you dropped a little bit of a little snippet of a Woodstock story. So do you want to share that with us if you've still got time? I'd like to hear that.
Well, one thing, I don't know if you read my bio, the story of Velvert Turner. You read that, right? Yes?
Yeah.
I saw a mention of it.
Yeah.
Well, Velvert, when I was hanging out in the Village in New York, from Brooklyn, and Velvert came to audition as the lead singer for a blues band I was in. And Velvert was like a 6'3" version of Jimi Hendrix. He looked like him. Not exactly, but he had the fro and he had a lot of clothing and he sang. And after we jammed, I said something to him like, where'd you get your clothes? And he says, Jimmy gave them to me. I'm going, Jimmy who? He goes, Jimi Hendrix. This is 68, right? And I looked at him like, who the hell are you? You don't know Jimi Hendrix. Nobody. Jimmy was a god, right? Yeah. So anyway, and I had seen Jimmy at 68 at Fillmore, and I already saw him play live. So I knew Fillmore East was the greatest place in the world. That was my education at Fillmore, because I saw every band. It was cheap, and Bill Graham had the best shows, blues. I saw Led Zeppelin's first tour, Jeff Beck. Everybody played at Fillmore. The Who, I've seen multiple times. Jimi Hendrix, Cream. I mean, man, look at all those bands that are just influenced my life. And my bass playing too, of course. So, thank God for Bill Graham, because he made it all possible. But anyway, so Velvert, I kept in touch with Velvert, and he told me he's got tickets to see Jimmy play Philharmonic Hall in New York at Thanksgiving. And he said afterwards, there's a birthday party for him uptown. So I go, sure, I'll go. So we went to the concert. Next thing you know, we're at the birthday party, and I'm freaking out going, what the hell's going on here, right? How'd I get here? So Velvet did know Jimmy. I met Jimmy a couple of times. I didn't say much. How could you, right? Hey, nice to meet you. So, but I knew, but Velvet, I put a group together with Velvet. He played guitar, and, people tell different stories about Velvet, but Richard Lloyd from television also knew Velvet, and, they had played together. So he did know Jimmy, and Jimmy, had hangers on, or people whatever Jimmy, he was very good, very charitable to people. He gave Velvet a guitar, as far as I know. So anyway, we had a group together, and we didn't really play much. And because of Velvet, I was able to get backstage. And for me, always in the audience, to go backstage to see all these shows and go to these clubs that were exclusive, really opened my life, let alone knowing that I really do want to get into music. Because if you're not in the audience, you ain't seeing anything. But Velvet, knowing Jimmy, he always getting in places because he said he knows Jimmy. So, and I was just with him. We were I was with him. I was his bass player. So anyway, I came to California very quickly in that summer of 70, and just to play and visit. And Jimmy had passed away in New York, which was how did this happen? People weren't dying from overdoses, but Jimi Hendrix seemed like he was different than everybody else because he was Jimi Hendrix. So it was sad. So I went back to New York, and Velvet got a deal. He got offers to get a deal. We went into a recording studio. We cut a demo, and it was really done well. And we weren't trying to be Jimmy, but so here's the funny thing. The year before, I'm at Woodstock in the audience. The next year, I'm signing a record deal with Michael Lang in Woodstock, New York, with Velvet. How weird is that?
Wow.
Full circle.
That's surreal.
Yeah, Jimmy had to pass away, of course, which is tragic. So we signed a record. It's bizarre, right? So we get a record deal. We come to LA to do our album, and, Velvet was a good singer, good guitar player, but you can't. Tom Wilson produced us, by the way, who was an iconic producer. And Velvet was good. We did a really good album, but hell, nobody. It's like the Knack being compared to the Beatles. It's a joke,
Yeah.
So Velvet, it was a lot of pressure on Velvet, and then we did the album, we did some shows, and then I ended up leaving. I went to Boston to play with some group, and then I ended up going to England. So I was friends with Velvet, but Velvet. So we did the album. It's out. It's all over. They were releasing it in Germany, in England under like weird record, some weird names. And then they released it a few years ago, and it's on YouTube, a lot of it. So I wrote some songs, and it's a pretty good album for what it is. Velvet does sound like Jimi.
Yeah.
But he wasn't supposed to be. So the Woodstock, I saw Jimi at Woodstock, by the way. And I saw him play in New York 3-4 times. And he was always different. All those groups, I love Led Zeppelin, all those groups jammed, and that's what a lot of people don't do anymore. And every night they were different. They played the song, but they jam, and they go, "What the hell, man?"
Yeah.
Jimi did Red House. It's 4 minutes on the album. He did a 12-minute version of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, and these guys were amazing.
And Prescott, that was like at 5 a.m. in the morning, wasn't it, when Jimi came on Woodstock? It was a really late time slot in Woodstock.
Well, it was actually the next morning, but the weird thing was I got there. I went upstate New York all the time anyway, so I knew where the area was.
Yep.
But I didn't have any money. Velvet, I didn't go with. He stayed in New York. I actually went up there. I went to this area, Mountaindale it was called, and I hung out there for a day. There was a guy I knew was a singer. And I was thinking, how am I going to get to Woodstock? And I was hanging out with some girls. And then I figured, okay, how are we going to get there? So I know this one girl had a guitar case. And I said, what's in the guitar? She said, nothing, just a case. And I took it with me because I figured the only way to get to Woodstock was hitchhike.
Mm-hmm.
It was 60 miles away. I had no money. So I went down to the road with my friend. And I said, let's look in the posters about Woodstock. Who's playing? Who do you know? So he said, everybody knows Candide. Everybody knows Mountain. Everybody knows. Anybody know Santana? He goes, I never heard of him. I said, either did I. Okay, we'll say I'm the guitar player for Santana, and we need to hitchhike to Woodstock. Brilliant. Kids are brilliant, aren't they? Yeah. I was 17, 18. So I had a scam. So guy drives by and he says, where you going? I said, Woodstock. Goes too far. He goes, hey man, I'm in the group. I'm playing at Woodstock, Santana. You see we're advertised? Can you drive us there? So he drove us there. So I'm thinking,
hey, you got there. That's all that matters.
Well, I'm thinking all these years later, this guy was telling a story that he drove Carlos Santana to Woodstock, by the way.
Did you get interviewed in the car trips? Like, what's it like being in Santana? And
no. I was just like, just get us there, man. And then it was all backed up. Long story, but I didn't have any money, so I figured I pretend to work there. So I went there with my friend. We signed up to do like hammer and nails because things weren't built yet. So I signed a register. Because I did that, it saved my ass because the next day there was no tickets because everybody broke the fences. So I lost my friend and I was alone. But because I said I worked there, I was able to meet somebody from security, hustle him and go, hey man, can I work security? I'm like, sure. So I got in there. Because of that, I was able to have a place to sleep because they had trailers there. You got to understand that I had no money and I was alone. But they never stopped me. So anyway, because I had a place to sleep, I eat. I hung out there, and then I worked my way down the hill. And when the Who played and Sly, who was my favorite band, by the way, I was maybe about 500-600 yards from the stage. So you can imagine how happy I was. And Jimi was a no-show. And the next morning, I was disappointed. But the next morning, he was playing at sunrise, pretty much.
Yep.
And I ran down the hill because I was slept there. I didn't know what I was doing, and ran down there. I saw that set, and I didn't understand why he played the Star Spangled Banner, but he had taken melodies and like wove them in anyway. He always improvised. You never knew what he was going to play, and of course, this became a legacy. Velvet didn't see it; he was really mad at me that I saw him, but not him.
Wow.
But I saw him, and then it was over. Nobody really saw him play very much. And he had a new band, which I knew about, and Velvet knew some of the players in the band. And then I had a hitchhike home. literally. I hitchhiked to Queens and then got a ride to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And my mom goes, "Where you been?" I go, "This thing from Woodstock, you know." And here's the kicker of the story. I got a check about 4 weeks later for $40
Oh, really?
because
How
I
cool was
signed
that?
up to work and I gave her the check because I stole money to get my bass, you see, so I had to give it back. So she's a good mom.
You need to get a book out. You need to get a book out, Prescott. What do you reckon, Grant?
Yeah.
I think you've just got some great stories.
The
Great
stories
stories.
he can tell.
But I'm telling the story. It's weird because it's almost like third person. Because I know I lived it because I wouldn't have gotten there. I wouldn't have gotten home. I knew the bass I had. I knew all this because I just like we all do. We improvise in life. You know, we make up stuff. We get where we need to go. I had a hitchhike because I didn't have a car. What do you do?
Yeah.
And it was bizarre when I think back on how it happened, but I'm lucky I did.
Yeah.
But if I thought I had no money, I can't go, then I would have missed it. And I saw all those bands already. And, 10 years after I had seen play at Fillmore, Crosby, Stills and Nash were new and they were fabulous. And I love Creedence. Look at all the different styles I like too. I love The Who. I love Sly. I love Creedence. And, so it was fantastic and Jefferson Airplane were also, I love them. And Jack Cassidy was an influence for me on bass too, by the way. A lot of people don't mention him, but he was amazing.